Good morning, everyone, and thanks very much for the invitation. It's really a pleasure being here and see you all for the first time in real life after 2 years of COVID, and also a pleasure to be here at the University of Strasbourg, and impressive to see the activities in the area of open science that they had recently. I was a student 10 years ago, seated in the other side, and impressive how to see how university has made open science as well a priority. So in my presentation, I will really focus about the European research area and how we are supporting the advancing and the mainstreaming of open science and the European Open Science Cloud through ERA as well. I want to start with one first thing, reminding that actually last year in November, the Council, so the Member States adopted the Pact for Research and Innovation, which is really an important cornerstone in the new European research area. And actually the Pact for Research and Innovation includes the values and principle, the common values and principle of the Union for research and innovation in Europe. And as you can see, I highlighted in these values and principles, there are some that are really where open science is central. So you can think about the free circulation of scientific knowledge, which is about sharing knowledge as early as possible, notably through open science practices, and also the pursuit of excellence, meaning that research is, of course, needs to be world-class, but also to be open, to be verifiable, reproducible, and also to be carried out according to open and transparent processes and methodologies. And we also have the principle of societal responsibility, which implies the inclusion of citizens, civil society, and end users in the creation of R&I agendas and policies. Now, the Council and the Member States also agreed on priority areas for joint action, and I think it's quite important to see that open science, and you see it highlighted very well, it's a key priority action for the new European research area, and you see here a lot of other priorities that are very relevant for the EOSC and for open science, like research assessment, research infrastructure, and again, citizen and society engagement. Now, the Council also established the new governance for the European research area, and the Council, the Member States, proposed some areas for action and priority areas in the ERA policy agenda for 2022-2024. And again, you can see, and I highlighted this, there are many areas for action that are very relevant for the EOSC and for open science and for the further development of open science in Europe. I'm citing EU copyright and data legislation framework that is fit for research, the need to reform research assessment, bringing science closer to citizens, strengthen the accessibility and resilience of research and infrastructure, and also the monitoring by establishing an efficient and effective ERA monitoring. Now, I will not have time in this short introduction to go through all these actions, so I'm going to focus just on the one that probably is very relevant. All are relevant, but on the one where EOSC is explicitly mentioned. And so it's the ERA action number 1 on enabling the open sharing of knowledge and reuse of research output, including through the development of the Open Science Cloud. So this action has 3 main expected outcomes, and here you can see the first one. So the first one is really to build and deploy really the operational capacity of the EOSC in the next year. And so it's about, you see there are different outcomes that are expected of this action. So building and deploying an EOSC core and exchange. So really a technology platform and coordinating functions that will enable the federation of the different data infrastructure, existing and planned one, and as well the discovery of EOSC resources, and an EOSC exchange, so the place where it can indeed expose services horizontal but also thematic that will enable the exploitation of fair data and as well encourage their reuse. But you see, this action is not just about developing and building this operational capacity, it's also how we sustain it in the future, and a lot of good work is already going on at the moment. To have some reflection on that, and also how we evolve this platform. How do we take into account the needs of researchers that might evolve in the future and make sure that they are catered for correctly in the evolution of these platforms in the future as well. The second outcome, and well, I guess all of you are very familiar, but I know that EOSC Future has also done quite a fair bit of work on this, and not only EOSC Future, but also the EOSC Steering Board, the EOSC Association, especially on this over the last months, and it's about establishing a monitoring mechanism. Why a monitoring mechanism? It's a monitoring of national policies for EOSC readiness, it's a monitoring of national contribution to the EOSC, but also to advance and to understand which progress will be achieved in the context of the European partnership in accordance with the KPIs that have been set. And of course, monitoring is important because to understand as well how policies might evolve. And here you see as well the benchmarking. And I think it's very much the benchmarking, but also a bench learning from each other, because monitoring, understanding which policies are in place and investments, it's also a way from learn with each other how we are developing policies, what we can learn from each other to advance and adapt this in the future and progress all together jointly. The third outcome is about a much larger, let's say, endeavor, and it's about making open science the new normal in the European research area and in Europe, and it's about the deployment and the mainstreaming of open science principles. So I will not go into, because there are many actions that we have in this. As the Commission, we are supporting the mainstreaming of open science through as well the research infrastructure, the widening participation and strengthening European research area work program. But I would like just to conclude on one specific action as well, and that's also about the mainstreaming of open science across the different research and national research funding programs. And this is an example where also the Commission, we are committing to do so in our new research and innovation funding program, Horizon Europe, where you certainly know open science is the new modus operandi of the program and very central to it. Why open science is so much a priority for us in the context of the framework program? I think as the European Union, we invest heavily in research and innovation. You see that only in Horizon 2020, we had over 30,000 projects that have been funded, and each of these projects produces research outputs, whether publication, data sets, and it's really important that researchers build on the results that have been achieved, that others can reuse these results. It's very important to advance research, but also for the trust of citizens in science overall. And here, just to mark some of the novelties that we have implemented in open science as regard the mainstreaming of open science in Horizon Europe. We have many, but just to point out that, for example, when it comes to research data, we ask all our beneficiaries that when in the action they collect or generate data, that these data are managed responsibly and in line with the FAIR principles, and that data are as open as possible and as closed as necessary. And we also, as you can see from Horizon Europe, we introduced the concept of trusted repositories. So repositories that really meet certain technical and organizational requirements. So to make sure that the content that is deposited in there, the outputs that are deposited in there, can be accessed in the long term as well. And finally, I think it's very important to mention, for the reason that I also explained before, in Horizon Europe, we also have strong requirements for the reproducibility. So we ask all the beneficiaries as well to provide information on to provide any information that is needed to reuse or validate the data that are produced in the course of the action. And this is really important to ensure reproducibility of science. So in 10 minutes, this was really very quick overview, I think, of what they are doing. I'm sure that in the panel there will be more possibilities, but just would like to conclude with one thing, and I think Ron beautifully said it at the beginning, and it was also an outcome of the tripartite event that there was in December. Of course, as the Commission, we are committed to advance open science, to support the development of EOSC, but this can be done only jointly together with you all in this room. So this is a joint effort for all of us, I think. Thank you.